First, why is the Titanic the focus of attention for these first few acts of our Symphony of Realities? The sinking of the Titanic was so important for our modern era, and it's a great way to teach how timelines work in this symphony. The Titanic carried so many influential people that depending on whether they lived or died, it would affect everything from our current debt-based slave system to free energy, to aircraft propulsion systems, to even a second civil war. It reminds me of the Hairball of Timelines when it comes to the Titanic sinking on April 14th, 1912, and the newspaper headlines. For example, the Evening Sun of Baltimore, Maryland on April 15th, 1912 said, "All Titanic passengers are safe, transferred in lifeboats at sea." The evening edition of the World newspaper on April 15th, 1912 said, "Disabled ship under tow after being hit by big iceberg." The World newspaper of Vancouver, British Columbia said, "Titanic sinking, no lives lost." The Washington Times, April 15th, 1912, late edition said, "Liner Titanic kept afloat by watertight compartments, being towed into Halifax, Nova Scotia." However, other newspapers reported what happened in our current timeline, such as the Virginian Pilot newspaper of Norfolk, Virginia, which said, "Over 1,500 sank to death with giant White Star steamer Titanic." So what's going on? Bad news reporting? Telegraph operators that couldn't understand how to read telegraph messages? Or perhaps a hairball of timelines? On April 14th, 1912, the evening the Titanic hit the iceberg, the Earth was experiencing a strong geomagnetic solar storm. A geomagnetic storm so strong that the ship's compasses would have been thrown off. Our sun was very active that day. To support this, I will now cite testimony by J. Bruce Ismay. He was the managing director of the White Star Line and one of the survivors of the Titanic. Here is part of his testimony from the Senate inquiry hearings held in April and May of 1912. The testimony begins as follows. Question: had you ever been on this so-called northern route before? Answer: we were on the southern route, sir. Question: on this Newfoundland route? Answer: we were on the long southern route, not the northern route. Question: you were not on the extreme northern route? Answer: we were on the extreme southern route for the westbound ships. Question: what was the longitude and latitude of this ship? Do you know? Answer: that I could not tell you. I am not a sailor. Question: were you cognizant of your proximity to icebergs at all on Saturday? On Saturday? No, sir. End of testimony. This testimony adds to the understanding that the Titanic's route was the extreme southern route, the route where no icebergs would be. But if the ship's compass was off because of the geomagnetic storm taking place, this fits in perfectly with how the ship was off course. Off course enough to be on the extreme northern route and in iceberg territory. As we are learning, the sun and solar activity have a lot to do with our reality. Even today, keep your eyes on the sun and solar activity.